All right. Welcome to this week's live office hours. We got a celebrity guest here. Finn, how's it going?
Hey Dylan, thanks for having me. I'm making a
Yeah.
rare appearance on office hours. Some of you have probably spoken to me on chat or over onboarding calls or optimization calls, but today I'm filling in for Casey, so
Yep.
I'm happy to be here.
Yeah. So Finn gets to listen to my AI rants. So good for you. So Prime Day, right? It's here. Kind of snuck up on me, not gonna lie. I'm like, oh, that's happening. Okay. So hopefully Prime Day for everyone was pretty great. I know it's basically multiple days, which is hilarious to me at this point that they're still calling it Prime Day instead of Prime Days. But that's besides the point. I know we already had a few questions in here, so I wanted to answer this for Kathy and Angel. I appreciate you jumping in, helping out with the support links here. So the question is there a newbie guide on how to use Aura once your products are available on Amazon? There are. So actually, the best recommendation here is if you use workflows. So if you go to the link that Angel posted, that's help.goaura.com, and you search in new listing, you'll see a help desk article that walks you through basically how to automate getting repricing live automatically when your inventory becomes available. That's going to save you a ton of time. We also have a blog post. If you search, forget how to do this on Google, but if you basically search like goer.com, or if you do site colon goer.com, and then you type in um, from manual to magic, I wrote a blog post illustrating how if you do three things, you can automate 90 something percent of your account. And it works for everyone. So that's going to be super helpful. So we're going to riff here a little bit. Obviously, this is open office hours, meaning there is no format here. We're just here to answer your questions, geek out with you guys. We're going to fill the space with some nerdy stuff because that's who we are. And I think we're going to have some fun with that. Oh, Jesse, got one
Hey
here.
Jesse.
Let's
Jesse, we saw you at the Proven Conference in Orlando.
So a long one here. Hey guys, I just recently bought a new Amazon storefront, and I was wondering if I needed a separate account to reprice the products for that storefront, or if I could connect it through my normal account. So to answer that question, yes, you can actually just add it to your regular account. You may find that there's a limitation on your current plan depending on how many slots of marketplaces you already have added. So just keep that in mind. And the added revenue will factor into your plan, but that would happen on a separate account anyways. I would recommend having those in one account. It's just going to be much easier administratively speaking to have it all together. You don't have to duplicate your strategies. You use the exact same ones you've already created and like to use. And then let's see, second part here. Would I be able to start at the lowest tier since the store has no sales currently for the last 12 months? So that's one thing you could do. If it's less than that 10K a month, that early stage qualification, you could do that. But again, because there's really no sales on it, if you were to add it to your current account, you may not have to pay more anyways. It just depends on how many marketplace slots you have available. And if you're unsure about those things, reach out to us in live chat support. We can take a look at your account and tell you exactly where you're at and if that would push you to a new tier. So, we're not strict about this. If it's cheaper for you to have a separate early stage account for that storefront, totally fine by us. We just like to make recommendations that keep things together. So we can avoid some redundancy, right? You have to log into two different Aura accounts, creating duplicate strategies, workflows, all those things. We want to try and avoid that. So take a look at that. That's probably going to be your best bet. Awesome. Oh, and
Another
Angel, yeah,
benefit
you are
too.
fantastic. Automating your repricer, Angel, you apparently we've hired Angel. You are doing some work in the chat right now, and I greatly appreciate you doing that for us. That's fantastic. Um, awesome. Okay, so a few things I want to geek out on. You guys know I like AI, talk about it a lot. As we're riffing, by the way, if you have other questions, please throw those into chat. We're going to prioritize those. I'm just going to geek out a little bit because today I used three different AIs in parallel, and it was kind of mind blowing. I'll walk you through what I was doing. So I have a Chat GPT thread. I've decided to call it Emily because it's easier to search and find because I have a lot of threads, and I've been using it to help make me better as an operator, as a founder, in a lot of different ways. Sometimes I'm chatting about personal things. Sometimes it's business things. Um, And I gave it like a goal. I'm the nerd that I watch Batman, I watch Iron Man, and I go, you know what? Those fictional characters are the embodiment of utilizing leverage in different ways, right? They both use, technology, they have teams. I just think it's a cool thing. Um, and so I started kind of riffing with Emily, so to speak, on these different topics and saying, "Hey, I want to get better at these things." And so now it's kind of holding me accountable. So I woke up this morning, got to the office, and my body is wrecked. Slept great, but I'm exhausted and my body just hurts. And I recognize that. I was kind of procrastinating starting to like get momentum. So I actually went to Emily and said that. And Emily, my AI, helped me just get started. And now the day went from almost shot because I'm just like, I'm exhausted physically, mentally, whatever, to I've actually gotten probably 2 days worth of work done today. And the day's not done. On top of that, so that's one AI. The second AI, I've been playing around with something called Claude Code. I'm non-technical. I can write some code. That's about my degree of possibilities. Claude Code's kind of interesting. It's what you would call vibe coding. So you're just chatting using natural language, and it's writing the code for you. Um, it's really good. So I got to a point where I'm chatting with Emily about some different like high leverage ideas, and I had an idea, and I needed a bunch of data. I could go to James on our team and say, "Hey, can you dump this for me?" Or I could be a high agency person and just go solve the problem myself. So I decided to go to Claude Project or Claude Code, type out a nice little prompt. And basically what I wanted was a web scraper. I wanted a custom web scraper because I needed specific data. And it probably took me 30-ish minutes. And funny enough, when it was running it and testing it, I was doing something else. Right. So we were running in parallel. It solved the problem, dumped me all the data. And then I'm using this information to send emails. So then I go to a Claude project, which we've talked about on the office hours before. And I dumped it all the context. And I said, "Hey, write me an awesome email." Went back and forth with that. So I've got one operator almost that's helping me like kind of stay laser focused, think correctly, high leverage plays, asymmetric plays. I'm using a coding agent to solve a technical problem that I otherwise would not be able to do myself relatively fast and well. And I'm using another one to solve the other component. So I'm componentizing all these things and then just delegating these out to different AIs and then just combining them when it's all done. Um, it's one of those experiences that when you do it, you kind of have to pause and be like, "Holy crap, this is pretty impactful." And Finn, I want you to speak to this because I know I talk to you guys about AI a lot.
Oh yeah, it's a common theme in our
Yeah,
office.
yeah. I'm slightly autistic about it. I think at this point, I'm very obsessive.
In the best way.
Yeah, so I like putting people on the spot. I do this with Casey sometimes, where I'm like, "Hey, how are you using AI right now? What are you experimenting with?" So I'm gonna put you on the spot. No pressure. If you're like, "I'm not doing AI, period," but I am curious if you've played with it even a little bit.
Yeah, I probably am not as knee deep in it as you are. So you're probably like the leading like resident expert on AI that we
Yeah,
have. What I'll say is that I'm starting to implement it in different ways of like my daily like work. And
yeah,
so, some examples of that could be, and some of you who have been on a call with, might recall,
yeah,
I typically ask before the call, is it okay if I have this AI granola, if I have granola
yeah,
sit in on the call. You don't know it's there. It doesn't join the call. It's just a little
yeah.
program that runs kind of on my laptop
By the
specifically, and
way,
it listens to both sides.
I have granola running right now because I'm gonna turn
Love
this
it.
entire conversation into Twitter posts.
And that's one of the many things that it can do. It basically
Well,
it,
real
it,
quick,
it
because I remember
eavesdrop.
you and I remember you and I talking about this, right? Because we're trying to optimize the onboarding flow because a lot of people don't or cannot fathom how small our team is relative to how much we do. And it all comes down to these little optimizations, right? So we were sitting down and you're like, "Yeah, I like to write these follow-up emails because I might have to send a resource or I just want to summarize what we did." And
Yeah,
you're kind of
yeah.
like doing it manually at the time. And I was like, "Hey, try Granola. Like it's free and it's going to do all that for you." And then I think like you tried it the next day, or you were trying a bunch of other tools as well, that just weren't really cutting it.
I had toyed around with some like yeah, correct. And until I
Yeah.
found Granola. Granola basically sits in the background, listens to the whole thing, gets all the context. Um,
Yep.
and from there you can basically it so not only does it give a full transcription of it, that you can go back and read like pretty much every word,
Yeah.
but you can also get high level notes, you can get like action items, you can get like key
Yep.
points. And so you can take basically everything that was said in the conversation and distill it down to very concise, actionable, if that's what you're looking for,
Yep.
notes that can be sent to the user as like a follow-up. And so typically I'll send those in conjunction with like some resources that we talked about. But it saves a lot of time. It makes the follow-ups more effective. Um,
Yeah.
that's my primary use case with Granola specifically.
Yeah.
Other use cases, obviously Chat GPT. I've been you know toying with it a little bit more, specifically with like kind of like anonymized internal data. If we're
Yep.
analyzing metrics of sorts, we can feed it to it, and ask, hey, what are some patterns that we're looking at? What are some
Yeah.
gaps that we may need to fill in? And
Yep.
so it really we use it internally to leverage. Dylan uses it in many
Yeah.
facets of its life. I'm getting there. So
Yeah. Yeah.
it's slowly taking manual processes off my plate.
Yeah.
And Angel, looks like a few months ago, I brought the idea of automating
Yep.
Hyperdrive. I believe your team was looking into it. Just want to see how things are going so far.
We
Um,
are we are designing that right now.
that's in the works as we speak. Um, that
And,
that would
and
likely,
real quick, because I want to highlight something here,
yeah,
because I have a lot of founders or sellers in our space that reach out to me. They want to talk AI and how to implement. And I think this is important because I think, even if you have, a team of, say 3 VAs in your company that are helping you source, um, I don't think I don't think it should just be you that's playing with these things. I think you should understand enough that when your team is talking about a problem or something that's taking too long, you have a go-to like path for them to say, like, when Finn and I were talking, it's like, hey, just check out Granola. And like that's all he needs, and he can run with it and like experiment however he needs to. I've never taken the approach of our team has to use AI. I think if it's a and you're seeing a lot of CEOs write memos, these larger companies, Shopify did this, a few others have done this, where they're like, you have to use AI, period. The sentiment is correct. I think you're going to have to. I think forcing somebody to use a new technology doesn't really give you the end benefits, because what's going to happen, in my opinion, is you force somebody to use a specific AI, and that's all they're going to do because they're not curious. It hasn't clicked for them yet. I think your role as a founder, business owner, whatever you want to call yourself, is to explore these things and start to use them yourself to be an example, but also whet the appetites of everyone on your team to start thinking through that lens themselves. Because what I don't want to do is say, hey guys, here's 5 tools everyone should use. I really want the team to start thinking AI first, right? Like, okay, we could automate this. Sure. How? Or is there an AI tool that can do this? Let's go look first. Otherwise, you become the expert knowledge bottleneck. And I don't think that's scalable. And so I've always taken the approach of like, I'm going to show the team things that I do just to get the gears turning. I'm not going to force them to do anything. I'm not going to say you have to be using this. I'm just going to make recommendations. If we're writing something and somebody's like, hey, kind of having, some difficulty shortening this content,
it's a
I might
big
say,
use
hey, go to
case.
go to ChatGPT, and here's like a possible prompt, or like here's what I would generally say, and then it's just getting them exposed to that. Because the founder using AI is better than nobody using AI, but you ideally want everybody on your team using AI in some way, shape, or form. Because what it's allowing you to do, I mean, just look at what I explained that I did earlier today. That realistically, the coding aspect alone would have taken me personally a week, right? That's something I just would not do. It's just not worth the time, right? So the friction's too high for the reward. But if I can remove the friction and the reward stays the same, now it's worth my time. 30 minutes all day. But imagine everybody on your team trying to solve problems using this level of leverage. Um, and it could be simple things. It could be super simple, like what Finn's talking about using Granola for our onboarding sessions. People still cannot fathom how we do so many onboarding sessions. Well, it's because the process is as automated as possible. I mean, Finn, there's hardly any prior work to jumping into a call. The follow-up work is now completely, I'm not going to say completely automated, but it's, I mean, the
As
vast bulk
automated
of
as
it.
I've ever seen it.
Yeah, exactly. Like you still have to like probably throw in a prompt to be like, hey, write this follow-up email, and then like you copy and paste it, and like there it is.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, the majority of the work is compiling some of the resources that
Right.
we already have on hand that are
Yeah.
pertinent to what we've discussed. But that complements what the AI has already done,
Yeah.
which is the bulk of the work.
Yeah.
In fact, another thing that and it's really you demonstrating a lot of the AI tools that you use personally to, like you said, and kind
Yeah.
of inspire us to like lead us to the water to then drink it. A
Yeah.
lot of the tools that we use internally are kind of presenting that to us already. A great example is
Yeah.
Intercom. We love
Yes.
Intercom here at Aura. Intercom is like the ground zero, like Rosetta
I would
Stone
not
of.
use anything ever, period. Could
Yeah,
not do it.
yeah, it's so robust. It has evolved like with us. I mean, I've been
Yeah.
with Aura over 5 years, and to look at Intercom then versus now, I mean, it has just grown and
Yes.
grown and grown in terms of features and scope and capability, and a lot of and it is doing a lot of proactive work for us behind the scenes that the user never sees. So
Yeah.
just to kind of give like a little behind the scenes, it's like the Intercom knows every support chat and conversation that goes on, and it knows
Yeah.
what questions are being asked, and it knows how many times it has to get routed to us, the team, versus having a resource ready to tee up on hand. And it gives that to
Yeah.
us, and that's a
It
current
serves
project
it
that
up.
we're working on right now. Is that it's letting us know gaps that it has identified for us based
Yeah.
on just being aware of the context of the conversations and the
Yeah.
and what solutions, and it's an incredible tool internally.
Yeah.
And so that alone, that alone is inspiring, is seeing that the
Right.
tools are already kind of giving it to us on a silver platter.
Right.
That's another way that we as the team are being kind of fed these
Yeah.
ideas and potential use cases for AI, is that it's already happening
Yeah.
for us.
Yeah. I was working on, I showed you guys this a few months ago, but I had an idea based on a feature request we had. And everybody asked for a specific version of it. I generalized it because it needs to be scalable. And I was trying to figure out how to communicate this to the team because there's a lot of complexity to it from a design perspective. And I was like, you know what? That's not going to work. Like, this going to add so much confusion. So I went to V0 by Vercel. It's like a Vibe design kind of thing, right? So it's going to design, it's going to write the code, sure, but like it's mainly for design purposes. Um, and what's so cool is like, yeah, I got what I wanted out of it. But through the process of iterating and chatting with this thing, I had new ideas that I didn't consider that added tons of value. And so I could
Totally.
start to bake those in. And if I didn't like it, I just reverted the version. Um, and what's cool is I sat with Tasso, our product designer on the team, on Monday. I was like, hey, you know, I got these linear issues for new functionality we want to build, but I want to show you what this is, like how it works. And it was funny to watch his face be like, you did this? Like, yeah. Yeah, and he's going through my chat logs because I shared it with him. He's like, "You're
Yep.
literally just chatting." I was like, "Yeah," and it wasn't perfect, but we got there. And
Using natural language.
yeah, it was funny because after that call, after we covered everything, he understood what we were trying to build. He's like, "This really makes me want to explore this because as a product designer, he's used to doing it a certain type of way, but a lot of these workflows and processes are starting to change." And he brought up a good question. He's like, "Does this mean like product designers don't have a job in the future?" I was like, "Honestly, I don't think so." I very much take the augmented human philosophy or philosophical approach to this, where I'm like, "No, dude, if you're using these things, it makes you dramatically more valuable." Because if we have a random little concept that we want to explore, he doesn't have to go, jam on that manually for 2 to 3 days. He could do that in maybe 30 minutes and be like, hey, like, is this kind of what we were thinking here? Hey, I had some different ideas. Yeah, I kind of plug those in. And we can, that same day be like, oh, this is fantastic. Now let's take it to our system, our design system. let's really make this pixel perfect and then let's ship it. And he's still the driver, right? And this is what I
Right.
told him. I was like, you're going to design things using a tool like this far better than I ever could because you have the language of a designer. And I'm
Right.
just like, hey, I want it this way. And it's kind of like, I think I know what you mean, but like that's not really the right
He's
terminology. Like,
effective.
yeah,
He's plenty
yeah,
effective, and now he's becoming efficient as opposed to being efficient
correct.
and then needing
Yeah,
to become effective. Another major benefit that I see to speak to that point is that
yeah,
there may be, I've read this kind of, this is the sentiment that there's, there's concern about the dilution of like certain entry level jobs due to AI,
sure.
but I
Yeah,
actually believe that the inverse is true. I think that it actually helps facilitate better collaboration because now
yeah,
you're able to better collaborate with somebody technical such as Tasso because now
yeah,
you have the tools that you can better illustrate and kind of speak his language, if that makes sense. And
right.
that's widely applicable. I
And we
if
can
I
move
had
faster.
exactly. Yep. Yeah. So it allows a faster ways to collaborate, that better
Yeah,
communication, in contextual in a contextual format that didn't exist before.
yeah,
And that is a
right.
very empowering thing.
If I just had to jump into a Zoom call and just word vomit my idea,
It's exactly, yeah,
guaranteed
right.
he'd be like, dude, like,
Well,
but
you'd
having
spend
that,
15 minutes just,
yeah,
trying to get
yeah. And so we're able to have a far deeper discussion because there's this artifact, so to speak, that illustrates visually what I'm talking about. And then it's like, cool,
100%
now it's on you to go explore that and figure out how that fits.
spot
Um,
on.
and yeah, I think, to the question about, job loss, especially on the junior side, I think that will be the case. But on the flip side, what's so interesting is, maybe, you're not going to remove people on your team. You're just not going to hire more people on your team because your 5 people on your team can now do the work of 10 to 15. And the output is dramatic. The value is dramatic. And it just makes sense. Pay your
Got it
team more. Just
faster.
be like, yeah, it's very interesting. I very fundamentally believe that I kind of have these AI coworkers now in a certain way. Like, it's weird. Like
You
I
basically
named
do. I mean,
yeah,
that's
I named one of
yeah.
my threads Emily just because one, I was just like, I'm trying to search to find that because I haven't talked to it in like 4 days. I'm like, oh gosh, where is it? I was like, I'm just gonna name it Emily. It's easier to search and find. And like, but
Mhm.
I added like a persona to it. And then I did another one, working with like growth marketing and stuff like that. I had one thread where I just want to keep the context happening.
Sure.
And I was like, well, I'm gonna call that one Danny. So if I need to talk growth, I go to Danny. If I need to talk like more generalized stuff, I go to Emily. It's weird, but it's so effective. And I really do. I mean, this is why I harp on it so much. I mean, it's hard to illustrate this without somebody like looking over my shoulder while doing the work. But today's Wednesday. I've probably done a week's worth of work already. Like that's pretty impressive,
It's
and things
incredible.
that I otherwise would not have done because again the friction was too high. It would have taken too much time, not worth it. Blah blah blah. So I'm going from there's not only doing things faster, so I'm doing more things, but I'm also like adding things that otherwise would not have happened. Period. Um, and I don't need the technical know-how to do it. I can jump into a Claude Code or whatever, or a V0 for design, and just move fast. And this is a big thing, right? Like entrepreneurs, founders, whatever, need to have what's called high agency, right? So it's permissionless action. You're not just armchair philosophizing on things. You're taking action, and these AI tools allow you to do that much faster. But what happens when everybody in your organization, everybody in your business, your company also has super high agency? Turns out a lot of amazing things. But I do think that how you approach that does matter. There's a lot of people that, like, I think if I came to you guys and I was like, you guys have to use AI, and like I force you to use certain things, yeah, you do it. But like, are you going to be like happy about it? Probably not, because I'm just forcing you to change and
The
you haven't
best
seen the light yet.
Yeah, the best example I can think of, the best analogy is like summer reading. It's like as a
Yes.
kid, like when you're
Oh my
told you need
gosh.
to read X number of books, it's like there's
Don't want to do
friction
it.
involved. You do it, but you don't enjoy versus
Yeah.
if you naturally go to pick up a book and like it's a page turner. That's the best
Yeah.
analogy.
1000%. And that's where I want everybody on the team to get to. Right. And that's why, like, I will go experiment with these things, show them in each person's context, like with Tasso on the design front. Um, just to get him to be like, oh, I didn't know it could do that. Now I'm interested. Now I'm curious. Now,
Yeah.
because now his questions are like, well, how much time should I spend playing with these things? And I was like, well, not so much that it slows you down, but some percent, 10, 20% of your time,
Yeah.
just experimenting and like reworking your process. I mean, this is the world we're in right now where you kind of have to take things that have just worked and worked well and been best practices, and you have to burn all that down, starting with first principles and new technology, and say, well, how do we do it now with what's possible? Let's rethink what is sourcing, what is inventory management, all these different things. You kind of have to start with first principles and say, forget how it's always been done. How should it be done today? I'll give you a good example. I had a pretty big name wholesale seller text me over the weekend. He's like, "Hey, are you still using a personal CRM? I used to use one called Clay." I was like, "You know what? I'm really not. It's a lot of friction. It's a great system. I think it's actually amazing for personal CRMs. The reason why I'm not is I have seen examples of founders creating an AI first version of this, and like it's hacky. It's like a Google Sheet. But what's interesting is they're not interacting with the Google Sheet. They're interacting with chat. So if I had a conversation with somebody, I can just dump that into chat. It'll go and update the notes section, location, whatever, right? And then I could just say, okay, hey, I'll be in New York next weekend. Who do I know in New York? Well, it's already got the data. So it's just gonna be like, here's the 5 people in New York, and you haven't talked to any of these in like 3 weeks. Awesome. What's their email? I want to email them and schedule something. Here's their emails, right? It's a different process, right? And so a lot of these really complicated softwares, you can start to reduce the complexity and get better processes out of it. And this is kind of the world I'm thinking in. Another example is like writing PRDs. So in software, you have a PRD. It's a product requirements doc. It's basically how you scope out a feature. They can be very technical. They can be very lengthy because you're trying to get as much of what needs to get done, how it should be done, the functionality, everything onto one document.
Mhm.
They are not the funnest things to write. Now there's a great startup called chatprd.com that like helps you do this. I could do it in ChatGPT with some prompting, and I can word vomit exactly what I'm doing, exactly what I want, have it organize it. I can go back and forth, tweak it, edit, whatever. And again, something that I probably previously would not have done. It's not something we've done a lot in the company, but I've started to do it because now the friction is so low that I can set the team up for success on the engineering, the product side dramatically better. And they can review that and say, "Hey, I have a few questions." Awesome. Let's get clarity on those things before we start to work on these things and we get stuck somewhere. So it's making even me, who's non-technical, more of a product-based person, and I can provide more value to the product team. And now I can basically be a product manager. I can take on that role and do it relatively well. That's crazy.
It's one of the gloves that it lets you wear, just
Yeah.
like you're describing, like the V0 and being able to. I
Yeah.
remember, a couple. It wasn't that long ago that you had kind of demoed, some prospective features
Yeah.
to the success team, to Casey and myself, and you weren't able to just describe it to us. You were able to
Yeah.
visually
Good.
show it to us. But
Yeah. Yeah.
before we needed like Tasso to come into that and give
Yeah.
his, be able to build that. And so
Yeah.
it's like a glove that you can put on that allows
Yeah.
you to go and perform these
Well,
cross-functional tasks and collaborations that
yeah.
before were took more time and resources.
And I can more quickly get everybody on the team's feedback because you guys might ask a question like, well, how is this done? And I'm like, oh, I actually already solved that. Here's what that looks like. Or, oh, that's a good question. Let me take a note on that and let me think through that and figure it out. And I can do all these things before presenting it to the product team to say, hey guys, I think this is something we should build. I've already iterated, I've already prototyped it, I've already gotten feedback on it. And now it's just clear. Now it's like, cool, we know exactly what to build now.
Yeah,
Versus like, you know,
yeah,
what a lot of software companies do, and what we've definitely done is, we have an idea, we just start building. It's like, then you find the edge cases and all these different things. You're like, well, what if we did it this way? And it's like, yeah, we probably should have, clarified this thing way earlier in the pipeline, so to speak. And that's what I'm trying to, get better at. But now, you know, a year ago, 6 months ago, I would not have been able to be this effective and efficient with this kind of stuff. I just would have struggled. Um,
The
but
world was a
now
different place when we were going
yeah,
through a lot of these iterations. It's like when
yeah,
Ore was being, the beta was being built. It's like none of this was here. Now
no.
it's yeah. So it's not like you could have done it and you didn't. It's that we didn't know. It's like now we
Yeah.
can. So we're capitalizing on it.
So it's whatever role you want to step into, whatever thing you want to get better at. Not only can you learn how to do it, you can be really daggum good at it. Um, and that's the interesting part, right? I can go and say, hey, I want to be an amazing product manager. What does that mean? Define best practices for me. Help me get the identity, the routines down. Okay, I got the baseline. Okay, I learned about this thing called PRDs. Those are pretty cool. Let me go find the best, articles on how to write PRDs that are effective and how to think about them, and then create a Claude project with all that context, and then say, okay, I'm going to word vomit what I want. And then your job is to help me write an amazing PRD that I can hand over to my team, and they know exactly what to build. Um, that's crazy to me. Like I'm not a designer, so like I can't. If you're like, hey, Dylan, go design this, I'm like, it's going to look like crayons. But now I can at least communicate what I think. And is it going to be production level? No, it's not meant to be. But I can take what's in my brain, get it out there, iterate a few times relatively fast, like an hour, and then present that to the team. Say, hey, what do you
And
guys
that
think?
condenses what would have been a week's,
Yes.
multiple business days worth of iteration. A
Yes.
couple questions in the chat. Angel,
Yeah. Yeah.
are any of Aura's current AI features for Amazon being added to Walmart repricing as well?
Yeah, so eventually we will get there. There's still a lot we're trying to learn because the behaviors, like if we just ported Maven to Walmart right now, it would not perform well at all because some of the dynamics of behaviors that work well on Amazon do not translate to Walmart at all. So we're trying not to rush that. There's still a lot of things we need to add. So we're still working on the Walmart side. It's not where we want it to be at right now. So there's still a lot of things that we're trying to get shipped out right now that will kind of shore up a lot of the data inconsistencies, things like that. I sat down with our Walmart rep yesterday. We have like a monthly sync. And I brought up some of the issues we've been seeing that they verified is a global issue. So like the buy box reports, either they're not included in the API, the data is incorrect, it's outdated by 10 to 12 hours, or I'm sorry, 12 to 24 hours, which is just not fast enough. They pretty much reiterated, we hear the concern across the board. It's not just you guys. I'm going to escalate this to management and see if we can get this sorted. So we're doing a lot of stuff behind the scenes as well that just make what we currently have better, right? Better data is always going to be better. So we're doing a lot of those things before we get to the AI side because, I kind of think about this as a pyramid. AI is only going to be as good as the data you give it, and that's the foundation. And right now, I don't believe that the data is at a point where it rationally makes sense for us to add AI on top of that quite yet. So we will get there, but it's going to take a little bit longer, certainly. Let's see,
Bob,
Bob here.
if I set ROI at 110% and my costs are $1.75, does that mean a min profit of $1.92 per item? The answer to that is yes. So when you're
Yeah.
using ROI, it's basically return on your cost. So
Yes.
basically what it would be doing in this case is the way that we calculate your minimums and maximums automatically is we take whatever cost you entered, whatever you claim you paid, and then we multiply that by your ROI. So in this case, we would basically double. It would basically essentially be 210% of your cost. The first 100% to reimburse you for that. The remaining 110% is your cut. And then we add in the whatever transaction level fees, the referral fee and the fulfillment fee to that
Yep.
to basically produce what we believe or a suggested minimum price or max price that you might be happy with. You can always override it if you disagree with it. But the short answer to
Yep.
that is yes. And the next question, Bob, the website says that Maven
Actually,
is built on a hybrid.
real
Sorry.
quick, because I want to give one recommendation here. If your costs are less than $5 and you're using an ROI, that gets really tedious and tough. We have the profit floor option in your strategy as well. So what I would recommend for things where your cost is really less than $10, ROI is kind of a struggle to get right.
Great
Still
call.
use
Yeah.
ROI, but I would also enable the profit floor, and that's going to be a dollar amount. So it's going to be whichever is the greater profit is what Aura is going to use at that moment. So
That way
that's a
you're
good
not
hack for your
punished.
low cost. Exactly.
for
Yeah.
having a
All
low
right.
cost because if you like arbitrarily, but 30% of nothing is less than nothing.
Nothing.
So yeah.
Yeah.
Next question. Hyperdrive website says that Maven is built on Hyperdrive. Does that mean all listings will be on Hyperdrive if you just select Maven as your strategy? So Hyperdrive and Maven coexist separately. They're two different
Yes.
features that we have. Maven exists in the form of a strategy. Maven is the
Yeah.
model, is our AI model that you can utilize as a strategy. Hyperdrive is slightly different. Hyperdrive is a secondary toggle to repricing. So once you toggle on repricing, you can then toggle on Hyperdrive. And what Hyperdrive does is that expedites the processing times of the price changes that we're already submitting to Amazon. So you can absolutely use Hyperdrive and Maven together. That will use the AI strategy, which is really the playbook of how we behave at faster latency for price change
Yeah.
submissions. But having Maven does not necessarily mean you can have Hyperdrive on with Maven off and vice versa.
Yep. Exactly. Yeah. So if there's any confusion on that. Nice. Yeah. Great questions so far. Appreciate everybody making the time.
Yeah.
We got a little bit more time left over here, so we're good on time. If there's anything else we can dive deep into.
I will say
Yeah.
that Hyperdrive and Maven together is like a power
Yeah.
combo. So for best results, those two together, you're adding the most dynamic strategy, the highest complexity in
Yeah.
conjunction with the highest speed. That's going to really maximize performance. Now, with that said, though, you can also use Hyperdrive on any other strategy, and Maven, pending the whatever tier limits you have, that can be used on however many listings that the subscription tier permits. But them together is a real power combo. Angel,
Yeah.
that's smart using the floor. I was manually setting min price for item where cost was below $2 since I have a workflow with age of inventory. Going to try that
Yeah.
instead. Yeah, that's actually why we implemented the profit floor as a hard minimum, because previously, before we had the profit floor, the solution was to either override those minimums or change those or duplicate your strategy and utilize like the fixed profit method. This way you get the best of both worlds. So
Yeah.
this is arbitrary, but let's say your ROI target was 30% and you had a profit floor of $3. That means that anytime your cost was $10 or less, we would use a flat $3. Anytime your
Exactly.
cost was $10 or more, that 30% would then be higher. So we'd always use the higher of the two.
Yeah. And before we go to Michael's, because I did want to highlight this, Angel, even more automation. Yes. So to clarify what Angel's talking about with autopilot, we have the feature, the functionality called Hyperdrive, which Finn just kind of talked about. Right now, you have to manually go in and dictate which listings are using Hyperdrive and which ones are not. And there's a credit system for every single pricing tier because we can't do it unlimited. We're looking at a way, we're probably gonna call it autopilot, where Aura can basically dictate. Let's say you have 25 or let's say you have 50 credits available on your tier. As an example, once an hour, Aura can review your entire account, all your active listings, and say which 50 really would get the most performance out of using Hyperdrive and auto balance for you. So it's one toggle where you say, hey, do it for me. And that's it. And just, as an example, once an hour, we're just going to rebalance and basically self-optimize your listings. So that's something we're looking at doing that's on the docket right now. That, in my opinion, we talked about the three things at the beginning of the conversation that, if you do in your account right now, you can automate 90-ish% of your account. Once we can add the autopilot functionality for Hyperdrive, I think that automation percentage really gets you up closer to like 95%, which is fantastic. Trying to get you to 100%, that's a little bit more difficult, but we're slowly getting there. But 95% is still pretty impressive. Awesome. So we got Michael here. Thanks, guys. I just signed
Michael.
up and am transitioning from Beagle to Aura this weekend. Is there a lag in the repricer taking effect, or will it be more or less instant? So it will be more or less instant. Yeah. So one thing to keep in mind, whenever you're transitioning to a different repricing software from another, you want to make sure you don't have to cancel the account, but you do want to make sure you have turned off repricing on your old account before you enable it on the new one. It's fun to watch, not when it's your account. They will fight each other because they're unaware. They're just going to keep making price changes. It's going to be a bloodbath. Again, fun to watch, not when it's your account. So just make sure you completely disconnect it on the old one and then enable it on the new one. The moment you hit enable and we have what we need to reprice, we're repricing immediately. So it's going to take off pretty fast.
Love the sentiment in the comments. Thank you, Alex. Thank you, Luane. Um, Angel, that's even more automation. Yep. And
Yeah,
Michael,
yeah, yeah.
welcome, by the way. Welcome to Aura. If you haven't yet, please feel free to book an onboarding call with me. I'm happy to jump into your account and get everything teed up and just make sure that everything's fully optimized for your transition over. And like I said, we can get Aura basically like fully teed up, ready to go, so that by the
Yeah.
time you're ready to toggle the Be Cool off, it'll be a seamless transition.
Yeah. One thing I do really like to highlight in these conversations, if you are new to Aura, even if you've been with us for a year and you have not done an onboarding session, they are free. You'll sit down with Finn. It's about what, 20, 25 minutes tops.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
might go a little bit longer. It really just depends. But it's a way for our team to ask you some questions, personalize the conversation, and make sure you're set up for success. So even if you're in a trial and you have not given us a payment method yet, it does not matter. You can sign up today, schedule an onboarding session, the next available. We do not care.
We
We just
prefer
want
to
to make
talk to you during the
sure
trial.
we do, because we want to make sure that you're actually set up even during your trial to get the most output as possible. What we don't want to have happen is you jump into a trial, you fiddle around, your trial ends, you go, well, it wasn't great. Let us show you how great it can be, and let's make sure you deeply understand it. And it's not crazy complicated. I know it feels like it, especially if you're getting your first repricing software. The way we have developed our own methods and philosophies on how this should be done, we can compress that knowledge into 20 minutes, and you're going to leave feeling like a superhuman with repricing. Like you're going to be well ahead of 80 to 90% of sellers that are repricing alone. Don't do that. Like we don't have VAs here. We don't outsource anything. Even our support, like Casey does day-to-day support tickets. Finn handles onboarding and jumps in when he needs to. Like use our team. Our team is here to answer your questions. There's no dumb questions. There's no stupid questions. Like I want you guys to ask your questions because I want you to have one, an understanding, and two, confidence in making decisions yourself. I used to be a personal trainer, and I remember the biggest thing that I learned was I do not want my clients to be reliant on me. My job was not to just make them fitter. My job was to teach them and give them knowledge. Because if they have to rely on me to continue that process, they learned nothing. They got an outcome, sure. We take that same philosophy here. Our team, our support team is always available, no matter what. But I don't want you to rely on us to change a strategy setting or whatever. I want you to have that superpower yourself. And if you're ever unsure about making a change or you created a strategy and you're like, hey, I think I set it up right, I would rather you come to live chat and say, hey, here's the strategy name. Here's what I wanted to do. Can you let me know if I did it right? We'll tell you. And we can give you that confidence and help you build that trust and confidence over time. That's so important. So do the onboarding. It's absolutely fantastic.
Awesome to hear, Michael. We'll chat on Monday.
There
But
we go.
if you have any questions in the meantime, just reach out, Finn at GoAura, and I can help out or take a look or send over any resources that might help. There's a question above
Nice.
that, Bob. Is there a bulk cost input where I can set a single cost for every item without a spreadsheet? So not at this time. Anything
Yep.
pertaining to cost that needs to be bulk set can be done via the uploads. Now, with that said, though, if you have a single cost price and you want it applied to your listings, just chat us or email me and I can do it in 90 seconds.
Yes.
Our team can basically handle that upload for you. But that is a sneak peek of something to come is bulk cost
Yeah.
functionality. We're
Yeah.
exploring that. So
Yeah. Yeah. Our team will also do work for you. So never hesitate to be like, hey, I have this like massive file and here's what I want to do. And like, I don't have time. Great. Send it to us. Tell us what you want
it's
done. We'll do
muscle
it for
memory
you.
at this point. I promise it's going to take me less time than, you know.
Yeah.
So I'm
Yeah.
happy to just do it.
Finn can probably do this blindfolded at this point, honestly.
Over 5 years of uploads.
We've done a few fair share, especially when we were upgrading to the new 1.0 system. We were manually migrating users. I'm talking
That's right.
manually
That's right.
cloning their strategies, downloading everything, sometimes having to
Swapping
reformat
out
it,
the
and then
IDs.
uploading. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
we did a few hundred manually, actually.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
I mean, those were long days, man. That was just like two, three of us, just like banging at it, man. That was crazy. Um, but we will do it all day long if we have to. So not a problem. So we got about 15 minutes left here on the time. Any other questions or things we could dive deep into? Happy to geek out with you guys or go down any rabbit holes or answer any questions that you may have. And so far, really appreciate the
The
amazing
sentiment is
questions
awesome. Yeah.
and the sentiment. Yeah, yeah. I'm gonna share these again because these are awesome. Right? Or is the best. More automation, absolutely. Or actually, hold on. Where is it? More automation. Sorry, I couldn't see. Or is awesome, absolutely. And the hyperdrive rebalancing, autopilot. That's going to
Yes.
be huge. I'm actually very excited about this because a lot of the questions
The
we get
way
is like,
with
okay, cool. I understand what hyperdrive is. When do I apply it? And I'm like, okay, well, here's how we think about it. Um, and as I kept explaining it, I was like, man, this is kind of tedious. Like, it's not, there's a clear process for when to do it objectively. And then there's well, now I have to sit down and do that process myself. And it's not the most streamlined process. I'm like, you know what? Software can do this easily, faster, more frequently, all day.
Jesse, can you
Yeah.
go over setting up the strategy for liquidating based on inventory age? So this is essentially going to be a combination of having an aggressive liquidation strategy in the form of a rule-based strategy paired with the workflow that can auto set it to that strategy upon your inventory reaching a certain age. And so this is really kind of goes in line with like the core three recommended strategies that we tend to recommend people start with. And then, yes, perfect, the resource. And
Yeah. I'm
then,
going to send these here.
yes, and then putting that, utilizing that strategy in the age of inventory workflow, where basically you tell it at what age buckets or at what point in the inventory life cycle should it apply to liquidation. And so one of the benefits of using the age of inventory workflow, granted, it is only available for FBA because for FBA listings, that's where
Yep.
we get that inventory age data. Let's just say that maybe you just sent in 10 units inbound, you have 5 units between 30 and 60 days old, and you have another 3 units that are like 90 days old. The way that the workflow can be configured, the way that we recommend building it is based on the oldest units, so that for as long as those 3 units exist that are in the bucket that call for it to be assigned to liquidation, we'll assign it to liquidation. As soon as those 3 units sell out and now your 5 next oldest units are now at a younger age, we have basically identified that there's less urgency there. So we can actually revert the strategy back from liquidation back to a more balanced, such as Maven or buy box targeting,
Yep.
so that it really goes in tandem with the age of the urgency with your current inventory.
Yeah. And
So
I
these
posted
resources
links.
will
I posted two help doc articles. One covers how to build a liquidation strategy. The other shows how to build the age of inventory workflow. So those two things will give you exactly what you need to build that out. And again, if you get stuck anywhere, if anything's confusing, reach out to chat. We are more than happy to add those to your account for you. We can do that as well. So we can be as hands-on as you need us to be. We can be out of your way as much as you want us out of your way as well. It's totally up to you.
or we can just come back and review it. If you want to take a stab at it and have us do a
Yeah.
look over and just make sure it's correct, we're happy to do it as well. Yeah, you got it, Jesse. One other thing that, kind of because the way that the workflow is configured is that you essentially assign a strategy to an age bucket or buckets. You can
Yeah.
select multiple. I mean, in theory, you could have like one strategy per age bucket if you really wanted to. You could have seven, because I believe there's 7 different age buckets. You could have 7 different strategies, and as soon as your inventory crosses through the buckets, you could have it then auto assigned to. I
Yeah.
personally think that's a little overkill. I don't think you
That's too
necessarily
much.
need 7, but I think there's such thing as having too few strategies. I think there's such thing as having too many strategies. And
Yes.
I think 3, 2 to 4, 3 to 5 is probably the sweet spot. Question
Yeah.
from Bob: do you determine inventory age from Amazon input? Amazon provides us data on inventory age, so
Yep.
it's going to essentially mirror what you see in Seller Central under the
Mhm.
inventory analytics page. That just gets pulled in. So there's no way for us to edit it or for you to like do it manually. It's just
Yeah.
reflecting whatever Seller Central provides us for those SKUs.
And one thing to add clarity, because I know some sellers are confused how we get the data. So we don't manipulate the data. The way age of inventory data is done in the API is you get the buckets. So 0 to 30, 31 to 60, so on and so forth.
Yeah.
And then you get how many units are in each bucket. So we can't do something like, hey, if the average age is above X, because you can't weight it super well.
Yeah.
Or we can't say, at age 45 days, right? You can't cut it in the middle. Doesn't really work that way.
Yeah.
So we currently just look at what's in the bucket. And if there's, you can set it up however you want, but what we tend to say is if there's more than one unit, or if there's more than 0
More than
units, so 1
0.
or greater,
Any at all.
in this bucket, then do this thing. And what's nice about the way we recommend building the age of inventory workflow is not only will it, you can set it to basically become more aggressive as your inventory ages. It can also become less aggressive as your age of inventory degresses. So
Right.
let's say let's say you start liquidating at day 61. So if you have more than 0 units, so 1 or greater in day 61 plus, you're going to be in a liquidation state. Let's say there's only 1. So you're going to switch to a liquidation strategy, but that sells. Now what should we do? Well, let's assume the rest of the units are in day 0 to 30. Well, what's going to happen is that workflow is going to run. We tend to recommend once an hour, and it's going to say, great, there is no units in greater than 60 days. So I need to revert back. I need to go back to
Yeah.
Maven, as an example, which is our starting strategy. So you're able to
Right.
take this entire life cycle of your products and completely automate it. So if you restock it, you're not like, oh crap, I left it on liquidation strategy. It doesn't matter. It's self-corrected.
Yeah.
And that is how you scale relatively fast.
Another level to that too is that if you're auto setting the mins and maxes, as you
Yeah.
revert back to a less aggressive strategy, generally we see minimum prices come down with time. So you could have the
Yeah.
minimum price go up from, if you're using 0%, which is break even on liquidation, maybe you put it back up to, 20 or 30% or whatever you had it set to before on the
Yep.
previous level strategy. Bob, this is a great question. Does Amazon always sell your oldest inventory item? I'm 99.5% sure the answer is yes. I've never
Yeah.
seen it where that hasn't been the case. I've always,
Yeah.
I don't think it's explicitly written, but as far as from my experience
Yeah.
doing this for years, they've always like debited the oldest units first. I'm
Yeah.
yet to see it work any other way.
Yeah, so they follow what's called FIFO, so first in, first out, which basically illustrates what we're talking about here. There is LIFO that's rarely used. They don't want things sitting around long enough or
Right.
too long. LIFO is very rarely used. LIFO is really nice for like grocery, like things like that, but I don't even think they use that for grocery. I think it's still FIFO across the board. Again, you're very rarely using LIFO. So LIFO is last in, first out.
Yeah.
It's mainly going to be FIFO.
The only, and I don't, this could be total F base. The only reason that there's a 0.5% of doubt is if in the event where maybe you had opted to do the manufacturer's barcode as opposed to the Amazon barcode and they commingle your inventory, even if
Yeah,
that's the
that's true.
case, maybe they physically will ship the newest item, but I still believe in terms of like inventory tracking for like storage fees, that
Yeah,
they must do like FIFO. That's
they
the
kind of have
only
to
scenario.
because storage
Yeah,
fees is based on time and,
right.
and, and volume. So based on
Even
just
if,
that rationally, it would have to
yeah,
be FIFO.
yeah.
Um, Yeah, it's we always leave like 1% doubt in everything we say just because Amazon tests things randomly and like there's always exceptions where it's like, oh, that one was LIFO. That's kind of weird. Like,
Yeah, I
but
don't want to be quoted and then, have,
yeah, yeah,
storage.
yeah.
Yeah. So,
The one listing out of millions that is acting like five or like LIFO
oh,
for no random reason,
yeah, no
or rhyme
kidding.
or reason. So, but yeah, you're mainly going to be FIFO if not exclusively. So
I'm willing to bet. Yes.
yeah, same, same. Awesome, guys. So we're going to wrap it up here for time. Appreciate everybody making the time to come join us every single week. Again, this is live office hours, meaning there is no format. We just jump in here, answer your questions, geek out with you guys, share some interesting things because I want you to be thinking differently. I want you to be kind of seeing what's coming around the corner. And hopefully this is a very high value hour every single week for you guys. We do this every Wednesday from 2 to 3 p.m. EST. We'd love to see you again next week. Please like, reshare all those great things that help us kind of spread the word of what we're doing here. And we will be back next week. If you have follow-up questions, no worries. You don't have to wait till next week. Jump into live chat, ask those questions, and we will get them answered for you. So with that,
Great
we'll let you get back to
conversation.
the rest of your week.
Great sentiment. Thank you, everybody. Loane, one final question before I jump off. So we can assume Walmart does the same with FIFO. My money's on
believe
yes.
so.
Yes.
Yeah, I
I'm
believe
yet
so.
to see it or any other way. So short answer is
Yeah.
yeah. Thanks, guys.
Awesome. Thank you, everyone. Have a good one.
See ya.